Hello, everyone, and welcome. Sorry. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Energy Storage News webinar with Trina Storage and special guest DMV, where we will be learning about the Latin America and Caribbean market. I'm Andy Colthorpe, editor of Energy Storage News and deputy editor-in-chief of publishing at Solar Media, which also publishes the PV Tech solar technology website. Across global markets, the rise of energy storage naturally mirrors the growth of renewable energy. Renewables come first, but as the penetration of variable solar and wind generation increases on the grid, the need for storage, whether electrochemical through batteries, whether mechanical resources like pumped hydro energy storage, or both, also starts to grow. So, for example, at PV Tech, we saw discussion for many years around the potential for solar PV in Latin America before the market started to really take off. And of course, huge areas of Latin America see many days of sunshine each year. And coupled with economic development in the region and rising electricity demand, the business case for solar grew to a tipping point. And according to InfoLink Consulting, demand for PV was somewhere between around 24 gigawatts and 27 gigawatts last year. The Caribbean, meanwhile, comprises mostly islands and archipelagic nations, largely dependent on imported fossil fuels and lacking centralized and stable grids. Thus, renewable energy can logically be seen as a viable pathway to modernizing those electricity systems. And according to the International Energy Agency, from about 5.4% in 2023, solar is projected to comprise more than 20% of the growth in demand for renewables in Latin America and the Caribbean, or the LAC region, by 2030. Wind power will, of course, grow too, from about 7.7% in 2023 to 16.7%. While hydroelectricity, one of the mainstays of the LAC region, will remain relatively constant and comprise just over 16% of demand growth by the end of this decade. Now, on a related note, Solar Media will be hosting the 2024 Energy Storage Summit Latin America in the Chilean capital, Santiago, later this month, or in fact next week. And regular readers of Energy Storage News will have noted that Chile is a particular hotbed of energy storage development in Latin America. This has largely been linked with the rise of solar, especially in the north of the country, which enjoys some of the world's highest average irradiance levels of sunshine. That said, we're also starting to now see major standalone battery energy storage system, or BESS, developments in Chile too. Not just renewable energy co-location or hybrid plants. So just today on Energy Storage News, we reported that institutional investor Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners has reached its final investment decision on a 220 megawatt, 1,100 megawatt hour, that's gigawatt hour scale, battery project in Antofagasta in Chile. And in separate news, today's special guest, DMV, supported renewables developer Atlas Renewable Energy to secure $289 million in financing for a standalone 800 megawatt hour BESS project in the country. And, you know, it's not uncommon for one country in a particular region of the world to take a lead in energy storage development or indeed in renewables. So with batteries, we've seen that in Europe. So, for example, Germany was an early leader throughout, let's say, the mid-2010s. And then for a long time, the UK was then the only country in Europe that we would see deploying hundreds of megawatts of storage every year. In Europe, that is rapidly changing. And other countries, you know, such as Belgium, Netherlands, Spain, are all seeing, you know, great deals of development. So coming back to Latin America, while Chile appears to have the early lead, there is movement elsewhere in the LAC region. such as Brazil's recent announcement of tenders for energy storage, which will be held in 2025. And on a different scale or market segment, we've also heard about fairly large commercial and industrial energy storage facilities being built in various regions throughout Latin America. And we've also reported on hybrid and standalone BESS projects in various Caribbean countries. So there is a lot of opportunity to compete for in Latin America and the Caribbean. And hopefully today's webinar will give you an idea of what's needed in order to be successful. So our speakers today, I'd like to welcome to the stage now are Luciano Silva. Luciano is Best Product and Engineering Manager for Latin America and the Caribbean at Trina Storage. And we're also honored to be joined by Carlos Hernandez, who is the Energy Storage Regional Segment Leader for Southern Europe, Middle East, Latin America, and Africa at DNV. Now, just before we begin, as always, interaction with you, the audience, is really important to us. So please put your questions for today's speakers in the questions tab that you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will try to answer as many as we can in the time that we have. Now, we do obviously have limited time to answer questions, so please rest assured that your questions will be forwarded on to Trina Storage, who will be able to follow up and continue conversation in more detail and perhaps share any relevant questions with DNV as well. And finally, this webinar is being recorded and it will be available to view on demand from the ESN site in the coming days, shortly after today's broadcast, with presentation slides to be sent out to registrants as well. Okay, so that's all the housekeeping and general introduction from me, and it's my great pleasure to hand over to our first speaker, Luciano Silva. Luciano, over to you.
Thank you so much, Andy, for that introduction, and thank you to all assistants and registrants to participate in this webinar. It is really a fascinating time, you know, in Latin America energy transition right now, and I hope with this presentation and with the interaction that we later have in the Q&A to be able to provide maybe what has been our view as a battery project provider here in the region in this year. So yeah, without further ado, I'm just going to lay out a bit a presentation of our company, and later maybe go into some discussion regarding LAC and what the title of this webinar is, right? Our view in how having a local partnership and local teams and local expertise is key in order to reach success in the deployment of BESS projects for our customers in this region. So, well, basically, maybe most of you might be acquainted with our company through Trina Solar, right, which is our parent company, is a leading PV cell and module manufacturer for over 27 years now, manufacturing tier 1 and being in the top positions, right, of the module manufacturing and distribution throughout the world, accompanying in this way the energy transition of not only Latin America but several regions in the world. And it is this what has motivated, you know, this the company has leveraged and is planning to leverage this dexterity and prowess in manufacturing in order to take now on the storage challenge, you know, and not in any way, you know, the company is now trying to leverage that manufacturing experience in order to go full on into storage, manufacturing these solutions from cell to cabinet. So there are some similarities in the manufacturing characteristics of battery cells and PV cells. So this is what our company is leveraging, and this is our way in which we want to be a leading provider in storage, as well as we have done before in the modules industry and also in the solar tracker industry. So being that said, our business line of Trina Storage has a bit longer story. We started out in 2015 and in that decade providing BESS consultancy and BESS integrations with BESS integration services and EPC services with others' batteries, right? But really the most interesting part of the story of this business line of Trina Solar is when we launched the Trina Storage overseas branch in 2021. And then when the company really takes the very strong decision to go full on into storage with the investment decision on a battery cell super factory in 2022. And from there on, you know, we have transformed this company into a vertically integrated storage solutions provider, where we manufacture cells, modules, battery cabinets, and also we take on the whole, what we call in the industry, right, battery integration or battery project solutions. So that being said, today we are offering in the market our vertically integrated manufacturing products and also solutions, as you can see in this figure. And with our new factory, which we by the end of this year we expect to be producing on full scale over 25 gigawatt hours per year of these solutions from cell to cabinet. So this is actually a very interesting take of Trina Solar into the storage business, wanting to go full on and including the battery cell production, which is by far the most sophisticated part in the technological challenge that is to integrate batteries. So this being said, this is our factory right here, based in Suzhou, near our headquarters of Changshu. And in this factory, what's really interesting is that we have all the assembly lines in the same place. So we have a main assembly line in the middle, as you can see, that big warehouse where we manufacture the cells. But then the process is very seamless between cell manufacturing, module manufacturing. Then we integrate that into these containerized solutions that you probably have seen around trade shows and now being deployed in the field, right? This is like the most kind of standard battery cabinet solution nowadays. We do all that seamlessly in the same factory. And then not only that, but then in our patio here outside the factory, we do all the integration testing, because we are, of course, a manufacturing company. That is our main personality, if you want. But we also integrate this into AC solutions that are really the projects that will make the battery interact and interface with the AC grid, right? So then in this factory and patio, we are able to test whatever configuration we are then shipping to our customers. And this, of course, provides us a great quality control of our products and solutions. And also having our own cell manufacturing, we have a bit of more competitive performance parameters on our solutions, maybe than only integration companies. This being said, our products catalog nowadays is like I'm showing a bit shaded here, is our first generation of products, which was our launch in the market, right? We launched with a battery cell of 280 ampere hours, which is a very popular, or was a very popular format. Also, we integrated that into a cabinet solution that was not containerized, but now we have moved into our second generation of battery cells, in which in the same volume that in that 280 cell, now we're putting in more energy capacity and also a longer lifetime. And we are integrating that in our containerized solutions. As also in other markets, not yet in Latin America, probably next year, we will enter the commercial and industrial segment. Nowadays, we are focused in the utility sector with our containerized solutions, which are very dense solutions that we will see in a minute, which we see is the larger trend in Latin America, and we'll get into that shortly. But also, as I was saying, like our company, we are our like main personality, as I was saying, is that we're manufacturers, right? We manufacture batteries from cell to cabinet, but we are also doing the whole integration and project offering. Of course, we do not manufacture any electronics for overseas markets, and then we are leveraging tier one providers in the electronics, power electronics equipment, also in transformation equipment, switch gears, and also in the controls and monitoring layer. So then we put all this together, serving as a one-stop shop for customers in order to really offer what is relevant to customers, right? Because BESS is not only battery, as you know. BESS is really a plant comprised of batteries, PCS, power conversion system, right, which is the interface between the DC batteries and the AC grid. Also with the transformation systems and all the other needed equipment in order to make this battery plant interact with a substation and lastly with the grid. We are able to provide all this equipment in a single supply contract. In that way, as I was saying, serving as a one-stop shop for our customers, in which we can also transfer warranties for equipments that are not manufactured at us by us, and in this way providing a more integral and wide scope solution for our customers. Then our product that we manufacture for this utility segment, which I was saying, is not a single product. We prefer to call this a platform, and it's the Elementa 2 platform, the number 2 being because this is our second generation of product, and it basically consolidates all of our experience from our Elementa 1. So we have done all the upgrades from that operational experience that now we have. And it is a platform, and it comes in 2 sizes, not because, the more denser is the 5 megawatt-hour container is better than the 4 megawatt-hour container. The idea of our company is to standardize the manufacturing of our DC block, have it in 2 options in order to have much greater flexibility at the moment of doing what is really more relevant to the customer, which is designing and optimizing the cost, the investment cost, the capex of this very plant. In the end, customers are really interested in having the best performing and more cost efficient BESS plant in terms of the dollars per kilowatt hour in the AC point of connection, really. Because as I was saying, BESS is not only battery, which I think that for many of our listeners today might be a bit obvious, but it has really been something that it's important to explain to some customers. Not necessarily the most dense battery will yield the most efficient or well-performing battery system in an AC from an AC standpoint. That being said, with this, we are standardizing the manufacturing of DC blocks in order to, as I was saying, leverage Trina Solar's prowess in manufacturing in order to reach a very high quality product with a high quality control, a great performance, and very importantly at this time, a very good cost, which is key and has been key in what we are seeing now at this point in the energy transition. Really, the technological change and the manufacturing optimization has single-handedly, I think, not recognize, of course, institutional efforts and regulatory advances in different countries, which we will cover in a second. But this is really what has changed the paradigm now in project development and has made it feasible now to think of batteries as part of a hybrid solar or wind project. And we are seeing that now go in full scale, right? With large projects as the ones that Andy was citing at the beginning, even over 1 gigawatt hour projects in Latin American country, which would have been unimaginable a couple of years back. So that being said, our company, of course, operates around the globe, just like our other business lines, Trina Solar, Trina Tracker. And in the case of storage in Latin America, which is what I would like to focus now, right? We have our base here in Chile. Of course, as Andy was saying, the largest deployment of projects has been in Chile at the time, but we are seeing an interesting future for the LAC market. And this has been our base, but we will begin rapid expansion. I will show that in a second. So the LAC market is really interesting. These are some projections by Bloomberg, which you can see there will be sustained growth as expected for the next years. And the motivation for this, and as you can see also, this is very focused in utility scale. Some commercial and industrial is expected to lead the way also. Very interesting applications, especially behind the meter, right? But now we're focused very much in utility, and the motivations for this deployment is basically the same in every country, right? The need to displace this renewable generation, which in some markets now that it is undergoing overcapacity. This is the case of my country, at least in Chile, where we have, it started out maybe as transmission congestion problems that were causing renewable energy curtailments, but that's not the case anymore. Now it's a more widespread problem. We have over-generation of renewable resources that is yielding large energy curtailments. And in order to take advantage of that lost energy, storage, and namely battery storage, is the way to go. And as I was saying, now it's becoming feasible with the technological change and also with the regulatory enablement. And in the regulatory front, I think it's really interesting to separate it in two aspects, right? We have regulatory enablement, which fortunately in Chile was done at an early stage. The fact that storage assets have the possibility of participating in the market design, in the electricity market design as it is, as well as we can talk about another kind of regulation evolution or trends, which is really regulatory incentives, which we also have had earlier on in place in Chile, and I think is now one of the reasons for that to trigger a lot of investment in Chile. In the case of Chile, this is of course capacity payments, which underwent a reform which virtually doubled the income of this line of income for storage assets, and this has completed, I think, the feasibility or the financial feasibility for these projects. This is why in Chile now we're seeing this pipeline of projects, and here I'm only showing that we have over 2 gigawatt hours in commercial operation and over 8 gigawatt hours in construction and commissioning. Here I'm missing because I didn't have the time just to put together all the projects that are in development phase, but this pipeline is huge in Chile, and in a good measure it's been growing rampantly in the last months since the confirmation of this incentive from part of the regulatory reform. But again, then I think the main reasons to explain this deployment in Latin America, in my opinion, is first a market thing, right? We have oversupply of renewables. We need to shift that, and this we always knew that storage is like a change of paradigm in the market. It's a much needed ingredient or technology in order to traverse and continue traversing this non-linear effort that is the energy transition, right? As Andy was saying, and also this technological change, mainly due to manufacturing optimizations from ourselves and other providers from China, together with this regulatory accompaniment, which has been relevant as well. I just laid out the case of Chile, but we are seeing interesting things in other countries from the region too. Andy was mentioning some tenders in Brazil. There are also tenders, public tenders coming out in other countries. And I think the Dominican Republic case is really interesting also, which is quite a different approach maybe to incentivizing storage. This is actually a new norm. It's really new. Well, it was put in place before, but now it has been more detailed. And this will actually require solar projects over 20 megawatts to comprise energy storage for at least 50% of their installed capacity for 4 hours. So this is really another approach and forceful incentivization, right, to storage that we need to keep an eye on, and it's really interesting. It will surely trigger BESS deployment. And we have these different approaches, right, from Chile, Dominican Republic, tenders in other countries. Probably these trends will replicate in other countries, and this will continue to be not only, as we might say today, like that we recognize one first wave of storage in Chile, maybe a second wave in Dominican Republic. I think that thinking in waves of trends in this market is not correct. I have been really impressed about how all the waves that I thought of kinds of projects in BESS have all turned out to be simultaneous. So really, I think that we're in a rampant market, even thinking wider than Chile. This is why I think it's so important for us to really be thinking in expanding quickly from Chile. We started out in Chile, but really now as a company, we are leveraging the already long and wide presence that we have in our region. In the case of Trina Solar, we have been for over 15 years deploying equipment and service team in LATAM already, with the first solar PV projects in Chile and other countries. Then also with our experience in the field from our colleagues of Trina Tracker, which have deployed massive amounts of solar following structures in Brazil, in Chile, and other countries in the region. And now today we're leveraging this, not only human resources, but also facilities and infrastructure that we already have in the region in order to take on storage. The company is really poised to become a leader in storage in the region. And this is why we have established several, again, leveraging all the existing assets that we have and teams. We have established quite a nice network and structure of how we're going to take on this market. And as I was saying, and this is like a double click on what the LAC region looks for us as the partner we want to become to our customers. We have based in Santiago, our engineering center. We have a large team of engineering here with over 6 people. We have now a project management center with our execution team. Also, we are now starting to build up our service and training capabilities. All around in Chile, we're already working with over 12 people. Region-wide, we are working with 16 people, and we are aiming to finish the year with over 25 people all around the region working exclusively for storage, which, as I was showing, it's really a market that is ramping and will continue to require a more human and facilities resource. Also to highlight, I mean, we are also leveraging our spare part warehouses that we have in Chile and Brazil, which is really important in order to have a good spare part availability for storage projects, that will allow us to comply with our long-term service agreements that we offer and performance guarantees. Also to mention, and one of the things that I think that it has been a good feedback in this market, especially since this is fairly new, right? I mean, batteries are not a new technology. Actually, in Chile, some of the first batteries connected to the grid in the world were in Chile back in 2011, 2012. But this scale of battery projects that we're seeing now is something fairly new. And this, of course, requires a different treatment, both in the commercial phase, development phase, contractual phase. And in this case, in this sense, I think that also the teams have changed. The ideal team for this is not necessarily what maybe our company and maybe some of our competitors are very used to, right? People that work in OEMs, people that are very product-based, product-centered. This kind of projects are much more complex, are much more wide scope, and they require experience from different fields. In the case of our team, we have a very multidisciplinary team. People like myself that we come from project development, working in generation companies and being, in the shoes of our customers. Also, we have people that have been working in batteries for a long time, in battery asset management in Europe, in other OEMs from our competition. But one of the things that I want to really highlight today is the importance of people with the background in EPC companies and construction. And, maybe, and with this, I may go to this slide where I lay out, the different phases, both as we see it as a solutions provider, and here in the bottom row, as one may see it as a project developer. One knows that in battery projects, the construction effort is not a huge challenge, maybe at first. But really, it's important to have a construction experience and capability when offering this kind of battery integration services, because you need to work hand by hand with the construction companies at the moment of execution. And I think that this is a good strength that we have as a company. Again, coming back to this slide, I think that is very important in order to, as we were saying, and is the title of this webinar, right? In order to reach and to attain success in a project, one needs to really think about how to, first of all, make the optimal project. You know, in the pre-sales, as we call it, or in the development phase, we are supporting our customers in really reaching the optimal plant that will really comply with their requirements, both in commercial operation, that really complements their PPAs, that complements their generation asset. And for that, we do a lot of work in really finding the optimal plant. Some people in development may think, and I think I thought it before I was doing battery integration work, you know, I thought this was very linear kind of project, you know, like more money, more energy management capability. It's not like that. You have some non-linearities, some details that you might pay attention to, especially when you have regulation inputs. Like, for example, in Chile, duration of the battery project, like of the energy management, is very relevant to determine the income streams in capacity payments, for example. So we like to work hand in hand with the customer in order to reach that optimal solution that will yield the better results in their financial models, and that will yield a more streamlined process with their financiers, which is really optimal in order for the project to happen, right? So we work a lot on that, and this is why we have, from the start, we established a very big engineering team here in our engineering center in Santiago, in order to aid our customers, even from stages of early development, in order to make the best decision. Also, in the commercial side, it's really important that since we have a very experienced team in terms of construction and EPC, people that have been in the field, we have field engineering teams, that we work hand in hand with the BOP contractor, even from early stages before the execution. You know, usually customers in Chile are moving into BESS projects by signing a master supply contract with an integrator like us, but then they also administer a BOP or construction contract with a construction company. We need to work as a team in order to de-risk as much as possible the project and to take it to success. Also, with our final customers, you know, local contract preparation and negotiation. We have all of our legal counsel of Trina here locally in the region, and this has really streamlined contract negotiation processes, which I think is also a key aspect that we leverage, and that we've had very good feedback from our customers in that side. Then in the execution phase, we have an integral and local team taking charge of every aspect of the project execution, of course, always coordinated by our project management team. And of course, there we have different challenges, which we take on locally: the sourcing of other equipment, right? Power electronics equipment, and also controls and monitoring layer equipment. We source that in order to place it in this master contract. We also take charge of logistics. Trina leverages, of course, a huge network of logistic operators and existing relationships due to our high volume of module sales and distribution. We also have a field engineering team, as I was saying, with these experienced people that we count on from utility scale projects, and this is key in order for project success, along with the other lines. And also now that we are poised to establish a local service and after sales team, this will always have local people from our company, supported, of course, by third-party contractors. But for us, it's really key to have local training centers, training centers that are in the language that we speak in a region, mainly, right, Spanish. And also, leverage our facilities and warehouses in the region in order to really be able to provide these guarantees and LTSA capability. Well, moving forward, and this is my last slide, I just want to make a reflection. Maybe apart from these, recognitions that we've gotten as a company, as an integrator from the different agencies and the industry, I want to reflect on the fact that it's really important for our final customers, for IPPs, generators, to really choose a tier 1 provider for their best projects. And this is not only because you of course need a high quality product and performing product, but also because storage, it has a particularity that usually companies that provide these kind of solutions, as I was showing here, accompany the customer throughout the entire process, from the first lines of drawing development to the operation and maintenance. And nowadays, with the technological change and the advances in cell technology, we are able to offer performance guarantees for even over 20 years. So this is really important, because finally, and this was not a reality 2 or 3 years back, now the guarantees that we can offer for especially energy performance match the typical horizon for a project. And this, of course, has triggered a lot of, or this is good news for project financiers. And this has really triggered a lot of BESS deployment. But customers need to rely on a company that will be able to provide that guarantees and sustain that guarantee for over 20 years. And the market in BESS integration now is really dynamic. You have seen every kind of company in the OEM business try to expand or integrate horizontally to storage. It wouldn't surprise me that in a couple of years this market is oversupplied with storage manufacturers and providers, just as it has happened with the solar module. And our company knows a thing or two about the solar module industry, right? So it's really important for our customers to count on really tier 1 companies that will have the solvency and the size and the prestige in order to comply and honor those long-term contracts, especially with regards to the performance and other guarantees. And with that, Andy, I'm closing this presentation. I'm excited for the Q&A that will come afterwards, and I leave the stage to my colleague Carlos Hernandez from DMV. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luciano. Okay, thanks everybody for having me here. My idea is to present some ideas about how to minimize the risk and increase confidence, because the reality is, I remember 20 years ago, I was already in this business. I read the news that in Alaska, it was installed the first energy storage. At that time was with naked batteries. Since then, everything has changed. We have moved from naked to lithium. We have reduced the size of everything because of the higher densities. We have reduced the cost. We have new regulation, new things. But the point is, the lenders, the banks, the investors, they don't have a view of the next, of the 20 years time to see if everything will be successful or not. So this uncertainty has to be only covered by reliable information and by facts. So this is something that they will ask you, and my idea is to give you some tips in the next minutes about points that will relax all these banks and lenders. So we need to pay attention to several points. Obviously, the key point is the business case. This project will have, it has sense or not from an economical point of view. The revenues will compensate the capex or not. We are going to install this in a stable region, or suddenly in the next 2 years, everything will change and suddenly all my revenues will drop. The technology, we need to select something that is the right one. I always used to say that Maserati is a good car, yes, but nobody will use it for the Paris-Dakar. So we need to select the right technology. And obviously the project has to be perfectly for the situation and for the business. So that is the idea we need to have in mind. So if we go to the business case, we need first to understand what will be the revenue stack for our energy storage for the next 20 years. Everything could change, but we need to have in mind what could be and to have a good forecast of all of this. There are many possibilities, and I'm sure that in the next years will pop up new ones. But nowadays, for example, if we check one country like Chile, we need to build our financial model considering a capacity market. We need to understand that maybe a PPA agreement, totally or partial, could be a good idea. Ancillary services is an option. Now in Chile, they are not so much, but it will come, etc., etc., etc. So we need to create a good argument about how will be our revenue stack for the next years, and to justify why we need this power and this capacity. We need to have a good power price forecasting if we are preparing this for merchant market, or we need to show that we can negotiate a good PPA for that case. This is the income. That's nice. But on the other hand, we have the cost. So we need also to have a good study of our potential cost. This cost, the CapEx and OpEx, must be reliable. Everything is changing. And also we can find figures quite different. It's not the same a tier 3 energy storage price than a tier 1. And also we have seen that the cost of the energy storage in the last 6-8 months has dropped a lot. But what will happen in the future? So it's important to have in mind this. Obviously, for this calculation, we need to have in mind technical parameters that can affect the financial model, like degradation, round trip efficiency, availability, if we need to add some augmentation strategy, etc., etc. And obviously, it's important to show some market studies about how will be the evolution of the energy cost price in the country and the regulation. If we move to the technology, we also need to relax the lender with some information. The first thing that they are going to ask you is, okay, the vendor is reliable. What about the track record? Is a tier 1? Is somebody new? They will ask. You have some information, but you can obtain some information about tier 1 solutions in reports from Bloomberg or others. But nowadays they are going to mainly finance tier 1 solutions, not crazy ideas. Track records, and also will be quite important to select somebody with local presence in the country. They want to buy something reliable, something that will have a good performance, but also they want to know that if something is wrong, somebody will come quickly to solve it. You will not need to wait 1-2 weeks for the spare part of the technicians to solve the issue. Regarding the product, you need to select the right product, align it with the financial model. So obviously, if you are going to participate in frequency regulations, you need a battery that is able to provide power dispatch. You need to, just to be aligned. Your financial model has to be aligned with the technical specification. Also, you need to have perfectly defined all the parameters, round trip efficiency, degradation, etc., etc. We need to understand how all of this will evolve in the next years. And also we need to understand if we will cover this with a performance guarantee or something similar. In many cases, they will ask you, okay, I don't know, this vendor is good or not. Do you have a technical review, a bankability report of this PCS or this battery. This also could help to finance the project. Obviously, now there are not so many certifications, there are not many standards, but at least all the performance and all the safety standards is a must. All the product, they must fulfill all these standards. So check that they are certified with according to these important ones. And also they want to understand that even you are buying using some documentation, a leaflet or whatever, before sending to Chile or to other places in Latin America the material, somebody is checking in the factory that what we have bought fulfill what we have requested. So factory acceptance tests and site acceptance tests will be mandatory for all these lenders. They want to be sure that everything is correct. Once we have reduced and minimized the risk for the product and for the financial model, it's important also to talk about the project itself. So the bank or the investor or whoever, they will want to understand that the whole project is developed properly. So in some cases, maybe they can engage a third-party company for a technical due diligence, or they will do this internally. Have this in mind as a to-do list. It's something that they will check that the grid connection is done properly. We have all the permits. The product that we are buying is certified according to the grid code. The project itself is also certified according to the grid code. And also check the site conditions, the technology, if the right one or is valid for the application. And for this, they want to know not only if the battery cell is right or not, they want to understand that the project is done properly. So that means to check that the DC container speaks properly with the AC part, with the balance of plant, the communication, the battery management system is coordinated, the thermal management system works properly. We have adequate fire suppression system. We have gas evolution detectors. For them, it's important mainly the safety rules. They want to know that this type of things will not have an explosion or a fire in the next year that will burn their investment. So this is really, really important. So we need to check all of this. One important thing in the last years that are coming from the banks is the ESG aspects. Start to have more and more an important weight, and they request to check, okay, your batteries contains cobalt extracted from Congo, for example, or the factory is a proper factory, or do you have child laborers in the factory? These type of things are important. So it's even in many cases an ESG study will be required. So it's important to have not only a good components, but to understand that your project is designed properly for your use. In the case of Chile, all of us, we know that in the Atacama is not, the temperature could be a little bit high. We have a dust environment. We have a seismic area. So check that what we are buying are not the standard product, but something that fulfill all the expectations. Okay. And okay, once you have bought everything, the finance companies, they will also ask you to have a control of the construction monitoring with site visits and checking that everything is built up properly. They don't want to leave any open point in the process. So it's important to cover everything, and everything has to be done with professionals. It's not valid that anybody with simple electricity knowledge arrives and connect everything. No, you need to have a proper trained team to do all of this. So this is something that will be important for the lenders, and they will ask about it. And obviously, once everything is connected and you switch on everything, you need to control that everything goes okay and everything goes according to plan. So from time to time, you need to check that the parameters agreed in the performance warranty, like round-trip efficiency, degradation, and so on, are fulfilled. Because if not, you need to ask for liquidated damages, or you need to think about to change or to do something in the process. So this is important till the commissioning of the plant. So summarizing, it's energy storage some years ago was nice to have. Now energy storage is a must to provide the flexibility of this energy mix that we want, with mainly renewable energy. And it's something that we need in places where we have high curtailment, or we need some variability of the resources, or things like that. So it's something that we need, and we will see this technology installed more and more in our region. So we need to check all these points: business case, financial model, minimize the risk with selecting a good product, not whatever. Yes, I agree that if you select a tier 3 product in China, the price could be much lower. But I understand that all of us, we want to sleep properly all the nights, and not thinking that maybe the fire people, the fire protection team is visiting your plant. And last but not least, the project itself, the plant, is not a standard. Also has to be designed properly, and is mandatory to check everything according to the initial plan. And this is everything from my side, and I hope I have given some ideas about the top or the typical points that the financial companies are checking, and happy to try to solve some questions in the Q&A part.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Carlos. Thank you, Luciano. I think, when we first launched Energy Storage News more than 10 years ago now, or just about 10 years ago now, in 2014, one of the earliest interviews I did was with Jigar Shah, who you might know from the US industry, now with the Department of Energy, the US government. And I think the key takeaway from that interview was that he said the key to energy storage is going to be not scaring banks away. So, getting banks comfortable with financing the asset. And clearly that's something we've seen happen at first gradually in other parts of the world. But I think it's really important obviously for everywhere, and equally for Latin America and the Caribbean. So really appreciate your insights in that respect, Carlos, and some great views on the market as well from you, Luciano. So with that in mind, we have just a few minutes today for the question and answer session. I think we'll be able to get through a few of these though. And as I mentioned before, anything we don't get to answer now, Trina Storage will be happy to follow up and take that conversation into a bit more of an in-depth territory offline. So thank you so much to people who ask questions. If you want to, you've got a minute or two to try and get more questions in, or as I say, those will be answered afterwards anyway, so it's still worth your while putting in your questions for the speakers. So Ignacio says, and thank you for your question, Ignacio. Oh, two questions. Okay, let's see if we can do both of these. So I think this is for you, Luciano. What projects do you have planned for Chile in the coming years? But also, and maybe this one we could open this up for Carlos as well. Do you see any regulatory or market constraints that could hinder project development? So maybe starting with you, Luciano.
Yeah, for sure. So, so in terms of BESS projects, we have awarded over 2 gigawatt hours of projects that are going to begin its pre-construction and delivery phase from next year. So we're very excited on that. Unfortunately, I cannot reveal the names of the customers yet. And in terms of what projects we have as a company here in the LAC region, as I was saying, we are now beginning from here to the end of the year. We will begin expansion to nurture our existing commercial office in Mexico in order to cover more closely, the Caribbean and Central America market, which is very interesting, and also, of course, our Brazilian market, which is a huge market on its own, and we already have a very big commercial office there. Then in your second question, Ignacio, regarding regulatory or market constraints, I think that, as I was saying, there are two kind of paths in the regulatory as I see it. There is some countries that are still needing to do regulatory enablement of storage. And in the case of Chile, this was kind of streamlined in 2021, for example, when storage assets were elevated or were given the right to participate in the normal, market design as generators, or as consumers are generators at the same time, being able to participate in the economic transfers. These kind of regulations are missing in some countries, and that is for sure a constraint. Then, in terms of regulatory incentivizing or forcing, as one could think about it, like the Dominican Republic example I told, those may be a constraint or not. It all depends. I think some projects of batteries will be able to be financed and will yield good results, even without additional incentivizations. It's case to case. I think it will depend. Also, it will depend on the cost trends of batteries. What for sure could hinder project development, I think, is regulatory uncertainty, and this is why we should be very careful and really invite our regulatory bodies to be, to maintain certain regulatory stability and not be reforming the market all the time, in order to give centralities to the project and asset owners, and also to financiers that are really, in most cases, who make possible the deployment of these assets. Thank you.
Sure, thanks very much. And Carlos, I don't know if you have any particular comments in terms of regulatory and market constraints that could hinder project development, and it could be not just for Chile, but the wider region. And I know that your remit covers, well, quite a few different parts of the world. So perhaps it could be examples of things that you might see potentially transfer into Latin America, or parallels that you might see.
Yeah, no, it's the idea is we don't have in Latin America enough regulation, and we need to work on it in the next years. Chile is a great example. Everything has been improved a lot in the last years, and we need to do exactly the same in the rest of the region. In some countries like Brazil, they have announced some auctions in January, so it looks like that they are following their way, but they are creating some regulation to promote this. As Luciano has mentioned it, in some islands in the Caribbean, it's mandatory to include 30% of the capacity of renewable energy in energy storage. And we have done several business cases there, and yeah, they are profitable. So we need to check case by case. The only thing is we need more regulation, some support in order to give the missing money in this process, and not to change the rules every year. We need some stability.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that need for regulatory certainty is, yes, again, it's something we've seen in so many different territories in the world, and obviously, you know, I think it's fair to say that even when people don't think a regime is perfect, like I think if they've planned to what they know is in place, then yeah, obviously it makes it more difficult if things suddenly keep changing. So certainly that's a familiar refrain, you could say, that we hear from elsewhere, certainly at Energy Storage News. So a question here on kind of the geographical spread, I guess, of battery storage market development in Latin America. So Alejandra, thank you for your question here. Asks if the main countries in Latin America you suggest will have a close battery storage development are Chile and Dominican Republic. So I'm guessing, Luciano, those are just kind of the two examples that we chose to focus on today. And obviously, yeah, Chile is you know, undoubtedly one of the leaders or the leader at the moment. But I just wonder if you and Carlos have some views on, you know, where some of the other near market opportunities might be developing around Latin America.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, well, there is a clear, and as I was saying, I don't like to, maybe I have one of my own self-feedbacks this year has been not to think in things in waves, right? Because, and maybe taking advantage of another question I read along there, someone asking about what are different like applications that will come before or after. I really thought that, for example, hybrid projects will be prioritized over standalone projects, and this will be coming in different waves in terms of application. I have been surprised for all these waves to happen simultaneously. In terms of the geographical, I think that there is clearly like a first wave in Chile projects, maybe because this curtailment, which is the main market motivation, is the most severe, right? But these are some examples that I see more clearly. Of course, this approach of the Dominican Republic is very interesting because it's a requirement, and this speaks about the strategic value that this government sees on storage, you know? Especially, let's remember, and maybe for some members of the audience that are not from Latin America, you know, our region is filled with countries that are very dependent on other countries for their energy resources. So really the energy transition is, of course, has an aim to clean our generation matrix and to comply with our carbon neutrality goals, but it also has an energy independence importance in our region. So this is, I think, one key aspect, especially in island markets. So I would believe that island markets would be priority. But for example, then you have Brazil, which is starting with these tenders. And really when Brazil takes off, we'll be talking about different volumes because it's a very large country. I can say the same thing about Mexico and Colombia, which are countries that have a fair bit of industry and also will probably yield once maybe they get inspired by some of the regulations or some of the trends that are being unfolded in other countries. Those will ramp up very quickly, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're seeing, I was just reading recently that I think Brazil comprised something like 2/3 of solar PV demand in Latin America last year. So obviously there's going to be a big driver in that market, and yeah, lots of other interesting things. Carlos, I'm very sorry, I did mute your microphone just then, just as we were getting some feedback off of Luciano. So sorry about that. I do want to hear from you though. Any views you have on that geographical spread of storage in Latin America?
I agree with Luciano. One point, just to add some different view to this, we are thinking about energy storage as support for the time shifting application. But you need to think that, for example, in many mining industries in Latin America, energy storage is supporting off-grid applications. In some other countries where the grid, the transmission lines are really weak, they are thinking about energy storage for the defer the investments. Or, for example, they are thinking about grid firming or grid booster just to improve the quality of the electricity. So we have different cases in most of the countries. The big volume now is Chile, but the rest will come. and we see nice signals for that.
Sure. And just for clarity, for those that might not be familiar, when you talk about the alternatives to investment, that's essentially energy storage systems as a part or a complement to transmission and distribution grids, right? So basically taking the place of investment in kind of wires and other transmission system infrastructure, and energy storage has been proven, I think, in other markets to like with the grid booster projects in say Germany, has been kind of proven to be able to perform many of the same kind of redundancy in particular, and other services of transmission lines. But yeah, so
but we don't need to go to. Sorry, Andy.
No,
That's
go
a
ahead.
comment.
Sorry.
We don't need to go to Germany. TSOs in Latam like ISA is considering this type of projects. So it's something that we already have in our region.
Excellent. Well, yeah, I should really get closer to be able to report on that a bit more, shouldn't I? But I think maybe another one for you, Carlos. Although obviously, yeah, we're happy to hear from you, Luciano. But Derek asked a question, which I think touches on some of the points you just made, Carlos. So thanks for your question, Derek, who asked, which services do you see driving the financial justification for battery storage in Chile, Brazil, and the Caribbean? And again, I think we can maybe broaden it out to other markets you might find interesting. But I guess Derek's asking because we specifically referred to Chile, Brazil, and the Caribbean. And I just want to ask my own sort of addition to that question as well, if I may. In terms of, you did mention, Carlos, the potential opportunities of merchant revenues, and we've seen developments in that area and in lots of other markets, such as ERCOT in Texas or the UK. Yeah, whether you think that kind of arbitrage revenues and merchant revenue models will be something that people can build a business case for. But sorry, I'm kind of putting words into out of context here. But yeah, so starting with Derek's question on the services that you see driving the financial justification for battery storage, that would be a great starting point.
Yeah, in principle, there are two different questions here, or different approach. One is for financing, we need to have a good business case. And for this, we need to understand if our revenue is good enough and will provide us a good profit higher than let's say the market is expecting, more than 10, more than 14, more than whatever is expected. So this is one point. But the lenders, they also want to minimize risk. So even if your business model with arbitrage and with the capacity market is fulfilling the expectations, they will prefer to have a percentage, at least a percentage of PPA in the model. They want to assure the business case with something that will be fixed by contract, not by market rules. So this is what we see now in the Chilean market. It's a mix and a hybrid version of PPA and merchant, plus other services like capacity and ancillary services.
Okay, great. And Luciano, anything you're hearing from your customers kind of around the business case and things that you can do to help them, I guess?
Yeah, so I think that mainly, and well, I am more of a specialist in the Chilean market, but I guess that other LAC electricity markets don't differ as much from the Chilean. So I think that in these first years, for sure, the main motivation will be energy shifting, and therefore the energy market, energy management in the end, shifting these renewable resources around and taking advantage of the spread prices in whatever kind of intraday market you have. maybe in the Chilean case, as Carlos was highlighting, that there is a big component of capacity payment, which this is the revenue stacking we have in Chile, and revenue stacking is the key concept here, right? Because we have these batteries, they are sophisticated and valuable assets. We want to make the most efficient use of them, and for that we need to try to do as much revenue stacking as we can. We see another, in my opinion, more sophisticated electricity markets, such as the Europeans and the North American markets, in which you can provide simultaneously different services with your battery. And this is, of course, desirable. This is a challenge and a more structural challenge maybe that we need to advance as LAC markets in order to make the most out of these assets. Nowadays, the energy shifting is like the huge thing, right? Moving these renewable resources around in the energy market. But, you know, this is only this chapter of this non-linear effort, as I was calling the energy transition of our region. Later on, when we really are going into the high levels of renewable penetration, batteries, and along with, of course, the power electronics that allow for them to connect to the grid, these PCS equipment, they will be the protagonist of the ancillary services and eventually of holding the grid together and the reliability of the grid. So I think that nowadays we need to be a bit more expectant or wait for the development of these ancillary services and their application to justify the financial decision for a BESS, as Derek was asking. But I think that we need to wait it out a bit, at least in the Chilean market, where no one develops a project considering ancillary services income streams, at least in generation domain. A whole other story, and we're starting to see this in Chile. As Carlos was saying, grid boosters and these kinds of projects are going out. Actually, in Chile now, we will have our first battery as transmission asset, which of course is another logic. It will get remunerated as a transmission asset, much more stable and much more regulated than a generation or energy management asset.
Okay, wow, yeah, that's tremendously exciting to hear, I think. And yeah, again, it ultimately comes down to that diversity of applications and that huge amount of flexibility that you can add, not just to generation, but also to the grid and, you know, to the stability of power networks, that I think makes energy storage so exciting for people, and, you know, at the same time gives so many different opportunities for it to contribute to the energy transition, and, you know, both in a decarbonizing way, but also in terms of improving power networks and access to power for, you know, for the whole world. And it's really exciting to see that in Latin America. Now, Luciano, I think you're appearing at the Energy Storage Summit Latin America, which is taking place next week at 15th and 16th of October through our publishers Solar Media at the Intercontinental Hotel in Santiago, Chile. So maybe you'll see some of the audience members there. For anyone that hasn't got a ticket and is watching this live, I'll give you a little hint. There will be on our newsletter today a discount code. I think there has been in previous days as well, which you may be able to use if you haven't got a ticket already. So apologies for selfishly using this this final platform to plug our event, but yeah, I hope it will be a useful one for all of you. But for now, for today, I just want to say thank you so much to you, Luciano, and your team at Trina Storage. And of course to you, Carlos, thank you so much for joining from DMV and giving us, you know, the benefit of your tremendous insight and expertise. Most of all, I do want to thank our audience members who took the time to join in. It's been a great session, and yeah, I want to also further thank you all, if I haven't thanked you all enough already, for being part of this incredible industry, and you know, really driving technology and ultimately, I guess, society on to greater things. So thank you so much, everyone, and yeah, we hope to see you next time. Thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you, Andy. See you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.